much as it is looking like the Raptors are going to be a playoff team this season, maybe not necessarily by finishing the top 6, though they look pretty good to be able to do that, being the 5th seed at the All-Star break, but could also be the play-in tournament. But being that it looks like right now that through top 6 or play-in tournament, the Raptors look like they're going to make the playoffs, we need to have a discussion around what we can expect from the team when they get there, because unfortunately, so far this season, when they've had to match up against some decently likely first-round opposition, they've faltered. They've fallen flat. They've lost the games, and then oftentimes they've looked quite uncompetitive in those games. So where are these problems stemming from? How large of a problem should we be treating this as? Let's break it down. And we're now coming off of another loss to one of the top teams in the East, this time the very top team in the Eastern Conference being the Detroit Pistons. And we got to be honest here, this was a pretty wire-to-wire comfortable win for the Pistons. They ended up winning 113-95. Probably could have won by more. Like, the Raptors were down pretty comfortably after the first, and it could have been worse. But yeah, they controlled this game. They were far the superior team. You look at the plus minus of the starters here. They were the dominant factors. Pretty remarkable that in a 20-point loss nearly, Scottie Barnes was only a -1. Plus minus isn't everything, but Barnes continues to be excellent in his minutes, and it's like a problem when he's not on the floor. And this was a game where he was in foul trouble, so maybe he could have gotten more minutes, and maybe the game changes a little bit in that case. But whatever. It's another loss, and it's not just like any old other loss. It's another comfortable loss to a team near the top of this conference. The Raptors are now 0-1 against the Pistons, 0-3 against the Knicks, 0-3 against the Celtics. Those are the top 3 teams in the East. They are 3-0 against the Cavs, though they played the Cavs earlier on in the season. They won all the games. They played them earlier on in the season when the Cavs were struggling. They are not struggling anymore, and they have upgraded the trade deadline by acquiring James Harden. So we'll have another test to see, how we feel with the Cavs, but perhaps the only team that's above us that we've beaten in the East is a team that has changed since we beat them. In the Western Conference, we've beaten the Thunder, but we've lost to the Spurs, we've lost to the Nuggets, we've lost to the Rockets, we've lost to the Lakers, we've lost to the Timberwolves. Again, it's the truly elite teams. These are the teams you're going to get in the playoffs, especially from an Eastern Conference perspective, obviously. These are the teams you're going to be playing. And again, it's not about just losing. It's the manner. It's a blowout loss here to the Knicks. It's we kept it close, but it still felt like a pretty comfortable win for the Celtics. It's this comfortable win for the Celtics. It's this decent. It was a decent, comfortable win for the Celtics. It's this blowout loss to the Knicks. It's this other kind of blowout loss to the Knicks. We haven't been truly that competitive within those games either. And I think there are some very prominent reasons why that's the case. So first of all, and we've already spoken about these a bunch, but let's kind of revisit them here. All-Star break is a really good checkpoint to kind of check in on these sorts of things. But first of all, when you're playing against a better team, oftentimes they can be setting the tone for scoring, and they've got good shooters. Good teams typically have good floor spacing. The Raptors do not. So when you get into these scoring battles and it's back and forth, and the other team is kind of setting the tone and setting the pace for scoring, the Raptors can't quite keep up. They aren't able to generate the stops that puts them in transition. The transition game is fantastic for the Raptors, but when they have to play in half court, that's where they struggle. The more points you allow, the more baskets you allow, the less you're able to play in transition and play off of those misses. Therefore, the less opportunity you have in transition to play your style of offense. With the lack of three-point shooting, the Raptors can't quite match up to the scoring output when another team is raining down threes on them, for example. On top of that, as we play better teams, as we get into these more half-court oriented games, the games get more physical. And physicality is where the Raptors have struggled this season. They're lacking in size all over the place, not just in the big department, but particularly in the big department. So when a game gets physical, especially when they're playing against an opposition like traditional big, they have found they found it tough, and they have definitely struggled. This season. So you've got those two things, plus maybe from a game management perspective, it feels like some of these games have slipped away from us, where we've kept it close, or we've been leading in some of these games. Maybe it's like a missed opportunity for Darko Rajakovic to make a sub and get his best players on the floor. Like going through a stretch of the fourth quarter where Barnes and Ingram are both on the bench, which shouldn't happen. Maybe a challenge should have been used that wasn't used. Maybe sometimes the offense is a little bit too much. Give the ball to Brandon Ingram and pray. And it's losing the principles that got you to this point of the season and got you maybe to that point of the game. But let's try and figure it, like, where can the pause? So how, like, if we made the pause, how are we going to beat one of these teams? How are we going to compete with one of them? Because at this point, it seems very much like the Raptors are going to be underdog. If they make the playoffs, they'll be the underdogs in any playoff series that they get. How are they going to compete with these teams? Well, I think a big thing that's happened in the last week or so is that Jakob Poeltl has played basketball again. Now, he looked a bit stiff, which is natural. He's missed a lot of time this season. But I think what has to unfortunately be pivotal is just the health of Poeltl. We bet on his health at the start of the season. And in spite of that, we're 9 games above 500 here at the All-Star break, like I said. But, wow, like, imagine if we had Poeltl. We'd probably be even better. We'd have the defensive anchor. We'd have that size. Like, the Clippers game slipped through our fingers, I think, largely because we didn't have a player like him. The Lakers game kind of slipped away from us because we didn't have that sort of size. There's probably other examples where having that type of player would have made a difference to this team. So what if we can get him healthy? I think that's pretty important for a playoff series, having that presence, especially for half-court settings, for screen setting for Emmanuel Quickley. That creates space for an offense to kind of force a defense to rotate, create some maybe some switches, some mismatches, some advantages for the Raptors. All that stuff on offense. On defense, having that defensive anchor, being able to rebound more reliably, I think that's big. So Jakob Poeltl's health is a big thing. On top of that, we need some players to step up. Like Ingram and Barnes have been all-stars. RJ's played his ass off this season, but Quickley has been inconsistent. Off the bench, there's not really reliable scoring. Shed's been great, but his scoring's not reliable. Mamu has been pretty good this season. Like really good this season. Can't really complain about him. But beyond that, like Grady Dick is incredibly, I mean, I wouldn't even say inconsistent. He's been pretty consistently not great. Walter has had more games that aren't super effective than effective games, where he's not contributing to a super high degree. Colin Murray-Boyles' health is pretty important because he's been great when he plays, but he hasn't been consistently playing like every game this season. So I think having a healthy Poeltl is vital, and just giving some more help to this team. And I think that also, like, the bench aspect of it kind of brings us to, like, another reason where there's struggles. Like, some of these better teams, like we saw the Pistons, like, there wasn't really any minutes off for that team. They were on it the whole game. They were on us the whole game. There was, like, no points really where the Raptors were able to chip back into the game. And I think a reason why that was the case was that there was no off time for the lineups. They're deeper teams. We don't get that break. We don't have those lineups we can pick on. Whereas the Raptors, there's probably some lineups that you can pick on. So maybe in the playoffs, when lineups are more constricted, you're playing less guys that could help out the Raptors, but other teams are going to be doing the same thing, and you're going to be getting their top guys as well. So again, it feels like we're underdogs in any playoff series. I don't think it's as hopeless as people are labeling it to be, but we're going to struggle to win a playoff series. But if the Raptors can get to that point and get into the playoffs, I still think we need to consider this season as a success. But we know what the issues are. We're still early in this process. We're ahead of schedule. We can make these amendments hopefully in the offseason and come in with hopefully a much better approach to next year. But I don't think we should be ruling out a playoff series victory at this point. We've got the players who can hang. Can we get the lineups right? Can we get the right output in that sample from the additional pieces to Willis Oda line? I think we're good enough to do it. But like I said, we're probably underdogs. Doesn't mean you can't win.